Hello, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, whatever time it is, wherever you are. I hope everyone had an amazing Thanksgiving Day and has found and is grateful for the many things we have to have gratitude for in our life at this moment. Because while we can look at the negative, we can certainly always look at the positive, joyful side of what we have. My Thanksgiving I think yesterday was the most magnificent Thanksgiving I've ever had. Everybody in my family is really good cooks, so the food is always pretty amazing, so I don't usually eat that day, even though it's not till later in the afternoon. I save it because everybody in my family is a magnificent cook. But this year it was just like everyone had truly outdone themselves. My niece actually works at Frisch's Big Boy, so she brought all kinds of pies and all of that stuff. So I ate a lot of stuff that I have not been eating. And I don't feel that great, to be honest. But mentally I feel good. The happy gratitude, the love, all of this energy was so amazing yesterday. And my family is so open and so non-judgmental and non-germaphobes, whatever you want to call it. So as the turkey was being carved, there were like 6 or 7 of us eating it off the plate with our hands while we were waiting for it to be served. Like no one cared, no one said anything. They were dipping it in the cranberry sauce to taste it and see how it was. So it was just such a great time, such a fun time, high, loving energy time. It was beautiful and amazing. Today, I want to talk about how we are being affected by the energy that I've been talking about for the last couple of weeks. We are the teachers, the healers, and the directors of planetary change. So as the teachers, the directors, and the healers of planetary change, we're going through a lot right now. Everybody is going through a lot right now, but we perceive and we receive things at different time shifts. I've talked about this a lot. It helps us to know that sometimes I will feel things, hear things, and see things 48 hours before they happen. And I'll tell you, last night when I laid down to go to sleep, that I ended up having a conversation with the sun. I'm like, are you having a solar flash? I mean, what the heck is going on right now? Because it was so strong. I think I got in bed at 8 o'clock and did not go to sleep until 2 a.m. And at 2 a.m., I actually thought about just getting up and making coffee at that point. But I did not do that, and I finally got some sleep. What I want to talk about today, and this is going to jump forward from the last 2 videos. So if you haven't seen the last 2 videos, you may want to go back and watch the last 2 videos that I did about the new relationship template and the divine new love expression that is now activating within our DNA. This is part of an upgrade. It's part of the cyclical thing that happens to the human being. Okay, so as we come in as the teachers, the healers, and the directors of planetary change, right now, there's the majority of humans on planet Earth are receiving a new DNA activation, and the new DNA activation is solely about and to the connection of love. How we love ourselves, how we love other people, how we love nature, how we love anything and everything that's around us and our surroundings. And the major proponent in this is the DNA is the alteration to the DNA is altering our perception of what we know to be a priority in love and what we know to be a priority in relationships. And this is obviously relationship with ourselves, other people, and our surroundings in the world. So the majority of the planet is going through this or will be going through this within the next couple months. There's a large group of people that have already been going through this for a couple months, and even a couple years. There is something really, really huge and important that I discovered while doing intuitive readings for people. Because while I had been perceiving this information on my own initially, it has come through in readings that there is a large group of people that are not going through this DNA love upgrade and activation. I knew that for myself, this was not something new, but I definitely saw, felt, and heard people around me going through this activation. So, how I'm viewing it now, my perception of it now, my perception of the percentage of what the breakdown is about 75% of the planet is now experiencing or has started within the last year out into the next couple months, and really specifically strongly with this energy coming in from 11/11 to 12/26 are going to really start being heavily impacted by this now, if they have not already. The way I'm envisioning this is about 75% of the population is now going to be experiencing this upgrade in love and relationships. Now, what about the other 25%? The other 25% is me and most of you, because again, this goes back to what comes through in the readings. I had no idea. I knew that I wasn't the only one, but I really didn't know how strong this was and what the percentage was. So here's what I realized. There's about 25% of us that dropped in this incarnation with that particular DNA already turned on. What does that mean? That means as a child, we already came in with that template turned on. And how did that affect us? And what kind of situation did that put us into? Well, I'm sure, as you know, the majority of us dropped in here to a family relationship dynamic that was less than ideal. Some people have it way different than others, so we didn't all experience this at the same time. I grew up in a family that very much believed in your intuition. They very much believed in your creativity. So that part of me was never ever squashed. It was never suppressed or repressed by my parents. I could say anything and everything to my parents, and a lot of times I did. But what this looked like for us coming in here with this already turned on, as that it was amazing. Like as soon as we were cognitive to understand and have any kind of relationship, which is probably around a year or two old, with other people and with nature and our surroundings, is, oh my God, this place is incredible. The love here, the beauty here, all of this is so incredible. Now, the downside to what happened. Most of us, again, were dropped into dysfunctional relationships, specifically in the family, and those dysfunctional relationships expanded out from there. So what I'm realizing is, and it's not like I ever thought I was the only one experiencing this, but here's the recent realization. The 25% of us that came in with this particular DNA love template turned on experienced massive, massive trauma in relationships. So unlike the rest of the 70 to 75% of the globe that's now working with how do I realign with my relationship values, what's important, and how I am or am not in alignment, or how I am or am not in resonation with the people, places, and things in my life. For the people like me that came in with that turned on, we're looking at everybody else and seeing that they're going, wow, I need to get into alignment with what is real in my heart and what is real in my life. But you and I are in the space now where we have to come back to what we came in with, because the majority of us were abused to the point that we lost what we came in with. And from my perspective, viewing other people, it seems like it would be easier to assimilate to something completely new than have come in with something 40, 50, 60 years ago and have to reacclimate to it and get the steps back to feeling like that. It's absolutely amazing viewing it, witnessing this, these new ideas, these new activations, and the amazing energy that's coming behind this to move us in alignment right now is absolutely incredible. So to the large group of us that came in with this turned on, we have to learn how to get back to it and stay in that energy no matter what happens to us. I'm really curious to know how many people within the last couple months or even the last year, maybe even yesterday, said to themselves or their family or their best friend, because I know I did. Here's what I've been saying for the last couple months. I don't want to be the teacher in the relationship anymore. In the outward world, since I'm on the front line of receiving, yes, I very much love that. I love that interaction. I love that being teacher. In my personal relationships, in my direct love connection, like I said, I've been saying for months, I don't want to be the teacher. I don't want to teach you how to cook. I don't want to teach you how to do laundry. I don't want to teach you how to meditate. I want that person to meet me where I am. I want us both to teach, because that teaching between two people is so much more expansive than feeling like you're in a constant state of teaching in a relationship. That's where I've always been. And no matter what the teaching was, and for the first 3 decades of my life, it had nothing to do with, ascension or what's going on now. But it's but it's always been something. I have always been teaching about something, and I came to universe and said, I don't want to be the teacher anymore. Again, I want to be the equal. Now, if you've done this, let me tell you let me tell you right now what's coming for you, okay? Because I was looking at the really positive side of this, but as we are multidimensional and still in the third dimension, there's polarity to being the teacher and the student as well. I'm going to share a very, very painful experience with you. And this is a reason why I took a couple weeks off of making videos. This was very, very painful for me. So almost immediately after saying, I want to be in an equal partnership, I don't want to be the teacher, I received the biggest lesson of 51 years on this planet. And here's how that lesson started for me. I have a friend that I was in pretty regular communication with. And at the end of October, my family was coming over to celebrate my birthday. And I don't have company very often. And I don't wear makeup the majority of the time. So I decided, well, I should be really excited about this. Let me go in the bathroom and let me look in the mirror and, make an effort here and put some makeup on. I was in front of the mirror for maybe 30 seconds. And what happened blew my mind. Okay. So what happened was I was looking in the mirror, and while I was looking at myself, I saw that somebody else was looking at me at the same time I was looking at me. And how I looked at myself in that moment changed so greatly. I was like, wow, you are really beautiful, and all these things. So while this person was looking at me and I was looking in the mirror, was cognizant of everything that they were saying. And now I don't know if they were actually saying it to me while they were looking at me or if they were just thinking it. But wow, wow, wow. I heard every thought that was going through that person's mind. And for 5 minutes, I went back and forth looking at myself in the mirror, having a conversation with that self. With myself and with that other person's self. And the longer the conversation went on, the more beautiful I felt. And I was just like, this is the most beautiful thing I've ever experienced in my whole life. And the whole rest of the day, I just saw myself how that person saw me. Like, you're the most beautiful person I've ever seen in my entire life. And I carried that with me that whole entire day. And about 6 hours later, since I told you I've been very much in the energy of honesty, transparency, and being really straightforward, I got a hold of that person and I asked them if they had a picture of me. And they said, yes, I have several pictures of you. And I said, were you looking at my picture this morning and talking to me or thinking about me? Because I heard you talking to me, or I heard your thoughts of me, and it felt so expansive and so beautiful. I carried that with me for the whole day. And here's where the lesson comes in. They definitely weren't expecting that I was going to hear or feel what they were saying. They were extremely embarrassed. They were transparent and honest and told me that they were embarrassed by what they were saying, what they were feeling, what their thoughts were of me in that moment. And I was like, there's no need to be embarrassed. I felt incredibly beautiful and incredibly expansive. And I just had the most amazing day. And I just wanted to tell you how great this was to have that communication for you. Within about 24 hours of that experience, that person decided to pull away and not be connected to me anymore. Now, what happened to me in the interim of experiencing something that was way out of this world, telepathic communication and feeling invincible, unstoppable, creative, expansive, gorgeous, all these things, and then having that person drop away, I couldn't look in the mirror. I could not look in the mirror. Once they pulled out of that thought and out of that expansion and awareness and telepathic conversation, I could not look at myself in the mirror. And when I make videos, obviously it's just like looking in the mirror. And I couldn't get myself to do it. And that's why. And the reason why I'm telling you that is because when you ask to meet your equal and you ask to no longer be the teacher in the situation, you will immediately share that teaching situation with someone else. Okay? But here's what I learned in that situation. I have to keep my field high enough, and I have to look at myself in the mirror and see myself that same expansive, beautiful, gorgeous, loving way that person saw me, even when that person decides they're not going to be there, even when that person decides they're not going to support me, and even when that person decides because that person decided they just weren't going to look at me after having that interaction. They just couldn't look at me. And there were multiple reasons why that is what it is. But again, the expansiveness of learning the lesson. And so the lesson is for me that while it made it incredibly easy to love myself, while that other teacher was loving me, I have to hold the self-love and the self-worth and the self-confidence, even when that other teacher can't look at me, even when that other teacher doesn't want to look at me, or it's too painful to look at me, or maybe it's too painful to know that I can hear that person's thoughts. But whatever that was, again, the lessons are going to be incredible. And I was really, guys, I was really hurt by it. The biggest thing for me was nobody has ever looked at me the way this person looked at me. That has never, ever happened in my 51 years on this planet. And of course, to be honest, I want to stay there. I want to stay in that energy. I want to stay in that love. I want to stay in having someone say, wow, you are the most beautiful person I've ever seen in my entire life. And I was just sad, angry with myself for feeling like I put myself in that position. But then 2 weeks later, I thought, wait a second. I'm the one that asked to no longer be the teacher. And here came the biggest, most important lesson, I would say, of my entire life. And why? For one, the self-confidence and that self-courage and that self-love, as you know, it's beyond a necessity to get through this stage of ascension we're at right now, for one. But the other thing is, what good is it to have a teacher outside of myself if I haven't learned the lesson? So 2 weeks later, I learned this is what the lesson was. You ask for the lesson, you ask for the teacher, you get the lesson, and then you drop down into, oh my God, what is this? And then I had to laugh at myself 2 weeks later and say, oh, wow, this is exactly what I asked for. And why is this important? It's important because I've been sitting here making notes for the last 3 weeks on how the 20 to 25% of us that came in with that DNA capacity for divine partnership already turned on. And then we got it in an abusive love cycle that took us out of that. How do we get back to it? I'm writing for 3 weeks about how we get back to what we came in with. I asked for the lesson, I asked for the teacher. And immediately I'm shown a kind of love I've never seen, I've never felt, I've never experienced. And then to feel the retraction of that and know that the lesson is that I can hold that view of myself no matter what anybody outside of myself thinks, feels, or views me as. Huge. So huge. And maybe I don't know, this was such a big lesson. It even feels like this was probably the reason this person pulled away. Like, I don't even know if I had gone on 24 hours, was I going to get another lesson like this within that same amount of time frame? Because, wow, this was an incredible lot to process. Like I said, I've been processing this for 3 weeks now. Again, and this kind of dynamic, this kind of expansive love template, you go back and forth. You're not always the teacher and you're not always the student. It goes back and forth. And sometimes you feel incredible love and sometimes you feel that incredible love retracted from your field. Just amazing. And I honestly, I'm like, I can't even talk about this. And I did actually confide to someone that I had a reading with and told them, this is so incredibly hard for me to talk about this and go through this at the same time. And they said, it's a blessing. You have to look at this as a blessing. You're going through it and talking about it. What better way to describe or be in the energy and reciprocation of what is happening to yourself than to literally be going through it while you're teaching other people what's coming, what to expect, and how to go through it. So, again, amazing. So, I'll ask you right now, how many other people ask to meet their equal? How many other people ask to be in this give and take relationship of being the teacher? Astonishing. I am astonished at myself. Sometimes I'm astonished at my actual slowness in learning and my learning capability. But, it was a big lesson. And the next thing that I will slide into from there is this. We know the infinity symbol has a lot to do with this template, with this give and take, with this flow of electric and magnetic back and forth between two physical bodies. And really we interact with this with every single thing we come in contact with, nature, all people. But when you get in a certain relationship dynamic, okay, that is that infinity back and forth, let me tell you right now how you know who this person is and how this works for you. Let's say I bring something up to someone. The thing we want to know is how we feel in a dialogue and in a relationship. So I bring something up to someone. Someone, whether they know anything about the subject or not, can then add to that and say, wow, that's really interesting. Have you thought about this? Have you seen it this way? Have you looked at this perspective? Have you looked at the fact that all of this may be symbolistic? And it's like, wow, all of a sudden you're out there. So even though they knew nothing about what I was going to say to them in advance, they have made this conversation so expansive. It pulls you around. The electric and the magnetics pull you around in that figure 8. Wow, you've just added so much to my thoughts and so much to my ideas. That's when you know something is working. And that doesn't mean that you're going to agree with that person. Even if that person doesn't agree with me or I don't agree with them, it can still be a high frequency, expansive conversation. Now, what happens in the other end of that dynamic? I may bring an idea up to you or a concept up to you. And then you say to me, well, how do you know that? Where did you get that information from? Do you have a link to your ideas? Do you have a link to your thoughts? Is that information outside of yourself? Because I don't see anything that way. And you can see, even by me just talking about that, what happened to my energy field. I've retracted back into myself. I've let go of the expansiveness in the conversation where someone says, wow, let me add to that. That's such an exciting idea. Let's go in this direction. Let's just talk about it. Doesn't matter if we don't know anything about it. We'll create an open dynamic, and we will literally create what we're speaking about by both being on the frequency of being excited about the concept or idea I've shared with you and about the concept or idea that you've shared with me. So in one situation, you give something out and that is reciprocated with energy, vibration, frequency match, and harmony, and it expands into these amazing conversations. The other hand, I've given something out to you, I've given something out to somebody, and that person has asked me where that comes from. Why do I feel that way? So we remember, and it's not it's not just in our intimate relationships, it's in our relationships with everybody. And I thought this was a really amazing lesson too when I was writing this down, because we have the ability to do that with everybody in every verbal communication or situation that we come across, in every verbal or situation communication that we're in. What can I add? What kind of frequency, what kind of vibration, what kind of excitement, what kind of feedback can I add to that person's thoughts or ideas or concepts, and how can that person add to me? And that's when we really get into this incredible vibrational frequency of exchange that is, it's unlimited potential. And we have the energy that is assisting us right now. It is so magnetically pulling every thought, idea, and concept. It doesn't matter whether the conversation is about unicorns or going to the dentist. This energy is dragging us magnetically with so much power that anything we're excited about, we will create it during and after the conversation. So I ask you to remember that in every second of our communication, in our love exchange with other people, we are creating in this moment. And I'll go back to exactly where I started in this video. We are the teachers, we are the healers, and we are the directors of planetary change. We are so doing this. This energy is so huge for doing this. And just as I wrote this down, and if you haven't seen the last two videos, you won't get it. But it's just as I wrote this down and hit the live button, a truck drove by and it said, Apollo, home. I love you guys. And I will talk to you soon. Thank you so much, as always, for being here. Bye.